Welcome back to Qtronics, where I have all the gear and no idea. So today, as promised from the back of the PSIO install video for the PS1, I'm going to be installing a new BIOS chip into the PlayStation 1. Now, this BIOS chip will allow us to send the game ID to a Memcard Pro 2 or a Memcard Pro 1 if you have that one. Basically, as a PlayStation 2 as default will send this, but a PlayStation 1 won't. Now, this is the case for CD games or if you're using a PSIO. Now, this is a clone PSIO, but I believe the new revisions of the PSIO will actually send the game ID. So theoretically, you could buy a non-cloned one and it should work, but I have a cloned one, so I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, these chips that are here, I flashed them myself, but the board and the design and the actual BIOS itself wasn't done by me. I will link the GitHub down in the description so you can go and look at those pages and flash them yourself if you want to. The BIOS was designed by JDFR228 and the design for the BIOS board was designed by Me123. So yeah, go and check out those guys, order them. I will be having some of these for sale though, should you not want to buy the equipment to flash them yourself, because it can get quite expensive when you've got to buy equipment and stuff. So let me know. Without further ado, let's see what's currently happening with the PlayStation before we get into it. So I have Final Fantasy VII here. Let's just boot that up and let's see what's happening. Yeah, I have got the retro tink out today as well, guys. We've got a nice aspect ratio rather than that horrible stretched malarkey we've been having. So we boot into Final Fantasy. And as you can see, the Memcard Pro hasn't switched at all. It still thinks it's a PlayStation 2. So if I swap that over to PlayStation 1 first and then reset, you'll see at the moment it's saying Breath of Fire 4 because that's the last time I used it was on the other PlayStation that you've already seen that the PSIO was installed into. So I'll let this boot up again. So now Final Fantasy's booting up. And as you can see, it's still saying Breath of Fire 4. I'll show you it happening on the PSIO as well, just to prove that it's not just a disc thing. On the game this time is much better. I apologise for the last time, but sometimes that's what has to happen. I had to use the not so good scaler. We've got the one out now. Right, this boots up. I'll swing us into my favourite game for testing. If you don't know what that is, it's Digimon World. So let's jump into that. And if you've not seen the video, at this point now is when it would flick over and say it's that game. But obviously, that's got the special BIOS in already. So let's wait for that game to load up. And as you can see, if I zoom in a little bit for you, it's still saying Breath of Fire 4. Right, so I'll leave that playing in the background. So I'll be back with you in a minute. I'm going to get the board open, get down to the motherboard, and I'll show you how we need to install the BIOS. Right, catch you in a sec. Right then guys, we're back, and I'm down to the motherboard. And as you can see, there's my PSIO install on the back there. And the first thing we need to do this time compared to other times is get this heat shield off. Now there are several points around the board and a big thick ground plane. So what we need to do is we need to get our soldering iron with a big tip and get this heat shield off. That's the first thing we need to do. So I'm going to move some things into place and then we'll get that off. Right, we've got the big tip.
Oh, behave.
So let's get that going. Get the iron on, get some flux on the board, and let's get this off. Now you have to hold up a little bit when you desolder it, else it'll stick back down quite quickly. Now this point here and this point here actually go through the board, as you can see here. So they take a little bit more heat. So just give them a few more seconds with the iron on there. And remember, like I said, they go through the board. So if there's a hole in the board after you take them out, it's fine. Again, just be careful, just be nice and slow, as you don't want any splatter to form. And there we go, heat shield's off. Now, I'd give your iron a good clean at this point. And we're done with the big tip now. So, on the board, you can see all these silver spots here, these big ground planes. That is where the heat shield was stuck to. Right then, the next bit is pretty simple. So we're going to need to desolder this thing here. Now the best way to do that is with a heat gun. You potentially could get on there with some wick and pop it off, but I'm going to use a heat gun because I have one here. So now because I have a PSIO installed, I want to lift the board off the mat so it's not pushing onto it, because BIOS chip's here and there's some wires here, so we want to keep it elevated slightly, just so I don't melt those wires and then we have a world of pain in a minute. Right, there's my Hacker Omni voices. Right, so first things first, I'm going to put a bit of flux on the BIOS. And then we're going to go to 300 degrees Celsius with a airspeed of about 80%, just to warm the board through a little bit first. I've got a decent sized nozzle, as you can see. It's probably quite big compared to the BIOS, but that's good if you want a lot of heat over the whole thing, just so we can get it off. Right then, as mentioned, 300 at 80% airspeed. Right then, I'm going to go up to 430 now, and again, bring that airspeed up to 80. Let's keep it high, and then it shouldn't take that long to get off now. So, coming over the BIOS, get tweezers ready, and we're going to lift it off once that solder's melted. There we go, nice and simple, BIOS is off. Now, the board will be very, very hot, so give it a sec to cool down, and I'm going to show you the old BIOS. It's come off nice and clean, so I'll put that to one side. It'll be very hot. Hot air is done for now. Now our next step, while the board is hot, we're just going to get some solder wick out, keep the tip on, and we're just going to wick away all the old solder to make the next job a bit easier. So basically, as the board sits on, we want a nice flat surface to work with. So let's get some solder wick out and wick that off. Good time for just a quick visual inspection, make sure you've not ripped any pads or anything. As you can see, if those wires had been pressed down, they might have started to melt. We're okay though, so let's get into the scope. As you can see, we have a visual look at all these pads. First things first, make sure everything's good. As you can see, some of these pads do start to have a bit of their solder mask come away. Now we've not done that, I think that's just the tiny little pads, so solder mask can come away. Just nice little visual check, make sure nothing's broken, we've not broken any pads. I think we're good there. I'm just going to get the multimeter out and double check those 5 pads there though. Now this is the reason why I said clean off the old wick first, because now we've got to line this up so all the points have enough room to be soldered onto. So that looks pretty good. Hang on, obviously as you can see, there's an arrow pointing to point 1, which makes it nice and easy. That all looks good. So yeah, so first what I tend to do is tack one of each corners in. That makes the most sense to me. So we'll get a little bit of flux, get the smaller tip on the iron going. Now, little thing you can do here, if you put a little bit of flux on the bottom of the board, just a tiny amount, should theoretically hold it in place a little bit. There we go. We don't want to put loads on because I don't want flux living under there, but again, assuming you have no clean flux. If you don't do that. But yeah, a little bit of flux should be fine to hold that down. And there we go. Right, I'm gonna tack pin 1 on. I'm just trying to make sure we've got enough room for all the pins. If it goes on a little bit wonky, you know, unless you really like it to be lined up perfectly, it's not a problem. There we go, and then just make sure we're all lined up. I think we're pretty good there, to be honest. Yeah, that looks fine to me. So then we can if we spin the board around and tack in the opposite end. There we go, and then we can just work our way down, make sure every point's soldered. It should be quite hard to bridge these because of how the castellations are done. But if you do bridge it, just get some solder wick out and just de-wick it. Nice and easy. It's quite easy soldering, really. And that all looks like a really nice solder. I'm going to put a little bit more on this end piece that I tacked initially. Beautiful. Right then, to the other side. Whoop. Pin 1 looks already good. So yeah, the flashing for them is pretty simple, to be honest. I mean, let me know if you want to ever see a video of me showing you how to do that. The biggest cost for the flashing is the adapter that you have to buy. If you only do 1 or 2 of these ever, Me 213, as I'm going to keep calling them, they created an adapter that you can solder to flash. So I wouldn't suggest using it all the time because it feels really tedious to use to me. I've got a proper adapter for it. But if it's just a one-time thing, you just want a couple, or you want a couple, the adapter they've made is really good. I'm just going over each point here just to make sure they're all good. Right, they all look beautiful. So next thing we're going to do is clean it up because it looks a mess with all the flux that's on it. So let's get it cleaned up. Right then, and I'm going to get the PlayStation. I'm going to get the PlayStation back enough just to test it. I'm not going to solder it all back together yet, just in case. So I'll get it back enough to test it, and I'll join you back in a moment. So I'll see you in a sec. Right then, guys, I'm back, and I've got it assembled enough, just enough to test. So let me grab a disc first. Not today, Ben. First things first, let's test the PSIO. So let's turn this on and let's go. Now there are a couple of gotchas when it comes to the Memcard Pro 2, and I'll show you them as we're testing it, if this works. So you can see it's now flicked over into PlayStation 1 mode. I'm going to zoom into the memory card for you so you can actually see the memory card properly. Right, so the PSIO menu's loading up. I'll load the one and only, obviously, Digimon World. Actually, as it's already on Digimon World, I'll load something a bit different. I will load Breath of Fire 4, which again, another favourite of mine. Nice little FMV at the start as well, so we can watch that. So there you go, it's formatting VMC. Breath of Fire 4, there you go. I'll lift it a little bit closer so you can see. But there you go, it's picked up Breath of Fire 4 now. So yeah, that's the game ID. So now, if you've got a Memcard Pro 2 or Pro 1, it'll just automatically create your save file and jump to it. No more have you got to try and flick through and remember which memory card had which. Beautiful, such a great little thing. So shout out to JDFR228 for doing that. There you go, and that's loading. So if we turn it off and load a disk, I will show you one of the first problems. So I'm going to remove the PSIO, and if I put a disk in, I'll show you what happens. Now this only affects the Memcard Pro 2. If you've got a Memcard Pro 1, it's only designed for the PlayStation 1. You don't get this issue. So the issue is, ooh, 1 second. This stayed on PS1 then, and normally the Memcard Pro 2 switches back to PS2. Bear in mind, I need to hold the disc down to make it look like the lid's closed. So it's spinning up. Okay, you can see now it's loaded into PlayStation 2 because we've turned the console off and on. So it's gone for a full reset essentially. The game will load in. It knows it's now flicked to PS1, but it's still stuck on Breath of Fire and not on Final Fantasy. But if we reset the console, because the console never actually goes off, the memory card is already in PlayStation 1 mode. And then when it jumps now, you should see it change because the card was already there in memory card 1. There you go. Final Fantasy 7 now it says, which is what's running. So yeah, that's a nice little gotcha with the memory card Pro 2. But again, it works on both PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. So if you're using this with that, you're gonna have to do a reset. There is one way around it that I've found. And if we turn the PlayStation off, if we plug in I'm going to zoom out just so you can see what I'm doing here. If we plug in the PSIO, you're thinking now, oh, if we start the game, via CD mode in the PSIO. Well, that's not the case. I'll show you the issue with that as well. These are just limitations to the card, I believe, at the moment, just because of how they have to boot into PlayStation 2 mode before PlayStation 1. But I'm hoping that we can reach out to 8-bit mods and maybe they can have a setting to make it start in PS1 mode. Let's see. So boot into PSIO. I'm just going to load another game first to make the memory card actually register. It's not Final Fantasy 7, just because I need to show you something. Yeah, that's on me. I should have realised that. So there we go. We switched over to Breath of Fire now. So if I reset the console, and we'll go back into PSIO. I had to buy some new tweezers, guys, if you've watched a few of my videos. I was trying to pro something out and I forgot the ceramic tweezers. So if you try and pro something out with ceramic tweezers, amazingly, ceramic's really brittle and it breaks really easily. So that was stupid, don't do that. But I quite like these tweezers. So as you can see now on the card, if I zoom in for you, it actually says main exe, which is the PSIO BIOS, because it was already in PlayStation 1 mode when it loaded, it knows now that we're in PSIO. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see the card, and I'm going to load from disk. And now you'd think, oh, we're loading from, hang on. Let me, right, loading from disk now. You think, oh, it's loading from disk, so like a hard reset, this should change the name of the card. Okay, let me reset it again and hold my finger down this time. What an idiot. I'll get Ben to cut this out a little bit so it's not so long for you. Or he'll just not cut it out and make it really long and do me over. He's very good at doing that. So if we go to load CD, now it's loading the CD. You think, oh, it's going to boot into the CD, so it should act like a reset. If you can see that, it still says main exe, and that is because when it boots through PSIO, when it boots through PSIO, it doesn't actually go back to BIOS, so it doesn't send the game ID through it. So unfortunately, that doesn't work. The only way I've found to make it work without taking your PSIO out is to actually eject the SD, boot it up. PSIO goes in. What's going on? We've not got anything loaded. And then PSIO gives you the option to go to BIOS, which if you press select, it basically says enable the CD-ROM. But the key there is it's going to BIOS. So it's restarting the console. So there you go. We see the nice splash screen at the start. So in theory now, we should read the game. There we go, Final Fantasy VII. So yeah, there's the few little issues we have with that. So I'm hoping that because of that, I can reach out to 8-bit mods and hopefully they might be able to send a, make a firmware or patch that allows the PS2 memory card, allows the Memcard Pro 2 to boot into PS1 initially. Again, solving the issue of the disc spinning and stuff. Thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully that tutorial's been really easy and you can see how quick it is to actually change the BIOS out. The hard part is getting the flashing equipment to flash it. I will be selling these, so each BIOS is different per console you have. This is a PU22. There's lots of different revisions, but again, JDFR 228, it's got all the BIOS. JDFR 228 has got all of the patches for all of the BIOSes pretty much. So you'll definitely find one there. So that should be nice and quick, nice and easy. But yeah, let me know if you're after one. And let me know if you would like to see me install a mod chip. Now you're thinking, I've got a PSIO and I've got disc. Why the mod chip? And the mod chip is there purely because some games won't work on your PSIO. And if you've already backed them up to the PSIO, you might as well burn them to a disc, save using your originals. And again, sometimes original discs can get scratched. I don't know if you can see with this one, but this Final Fantasy disc doesn't actually load all the way through from the beginning. So yeah, having a backup of it is great. So I could burn that to a disc with the mod chip and play it. And also, I've got Japanese region games. Now, without a mod chip, they won't play in this machine. I'll show you what I mean, what happens. It just boots it like it's a CD, basically. Because obviously the region locks, every company has region locks, you know what they're like. So it'll try and read it and it'll just go straight to CD because it can't. Right. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see me install a mod chip. I have got plans to put it into this one because this is my own personal console. I've been trying to get one ready for myself for ages. The one you saw previously was a friend's and I've been dying to get my own version. So here we are, finally. And now I've got all the things. There we go. Jump straight. Tries to play it like it's a CD, which obviously it isn't. I mean, it is a CD, but not a music CD. You know what I mean. But yeah, thank you for coming. Please like and subscribe as it helps the channel to grow. And I'll catch you next time. See ya. Thanks.